Jinwoo Park stared out the viewport of his transport ship as the massive Galactic Council station came into view. The structure was larger than any city on Earth, spinning slowly against the backdrop of distant stars. After 3 months of preparation, humanity's first ambassador was finally here. The journey from Earth had taken 2 weeks using the Council's provided coordinates. Jinwoo carried with him carefully chosen gifts from his home world. Music from every culture, paintings that showed human creativity, and books that told the stories of his people. The selection committee had spent months deciding what would best represent humanity to the galaxy. As his ship docked, Jinwoo felt the weight of his responsibility. He was not just representing Earth, but possibly determining whether humans would have a future among the stars. The docking bay was enormous, filled with ships from dozens of different species. Some looked like living creatures, others appeared to be made of pure crystal or metal. A delegation of 3 aliens waited for him at the airlock. The first was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. The second looked like a walking tree, with glowing spots along its bark. The third was the strangest of all, a floating collection of silver spheres that somehow spoke with one voice. "Ambassador Park," the blue alien said in perfect English. "I am Counselor Vex of the Zentari. Welcome to Council Station. We will escort you to your quarters." Jinwoo bowed slightly, a gesture he had practiced many times. "Thank you for this opportunity. Earth is honored to be considered for membership in the Galactic Council." The tree-like being made a rustling sound that might have been laughter. "Considered is the right word. Human. Many species seek membership. Few are chosen." They walked through corridors that stretched for kilometers. The station housed billions of beings from across the galaxy. Jinwoo saw species he could not have imagined in his wildest dreams. Some were gas clouds in containment suits. Others appeared to be living rocks that moved by rolling. A few looked almost human, except for small details like extra eyes or different colored skin. His quarters were simple but comfortable. The gravity was set to Earth normal, and the air mixture matched what humans needed. Someone had done their research. Jinwoo unpacked his gifts and reviewed his presentation one more time. Tomorrow, he would speak before the full council. The next morning came quickly. Jinwoo was escorted to the Grand Chamber, a massive dome where representatives from 12 species sat in a circle. Each group looked completely different from the others. At the center was a raised platform where speakers addressed the council. "Members of the Galactic Council," Jinwoo began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "I come before you as a representative of humanity. We are a young species, new to the stars, but we bring something unique to this great community." He activated a holographic display that showed Earth from space. "My world has known war, but we have also known peace. We have suffered, but we have also celebrated together. Humanity offers not just our technology or our resources, but our perspective." The crystalline beings called the Vorthak shifted in their seats. Their leader, High Chancellor Zorith, spoke in a voice like breaking glass. "What perspective can a species barely capable of interstellar travel offer to civilizations that have spanned the galaxy for millions of years?" Jinwoo had expected this question. "We offer the perspective of those who have struggled and survived. We know what it means to overcome differences and work together." He showed images of humans from every continent working side by side, scientists from different nations collaborating on space projects, artists sharing their cultures across borders, children of different backgrounds playing together. "Look at your council," Jinwoo said, gesturing to the assembled representatives. "When was the last time one of you had a new idea that surprised the others?" The gas-based Etherians pulsed with different colors, which Jinwoo had learned meant they were thinking hard. Their speaker, a swirling blue cloud, finally responded. "Order and predictability have kept peace in our galaxy for 10,000 years. Why would we want surprise?" "Because growth requires change," Jinwoo replied. 3 days ago, your logistics computer presented you with a cargo routing problem that has been unsolved for 6 months. Your best minds have worked on it using proven methods. Would you like me to show you a solution? Chancellor Zorith's crystal body flashed with anger. Impossible. Our greatest computational minds have analyzed every variable. Jinwoo smiled and activated another display. You have been thinking about this as a math problem. But what if it is a people problem instead? He showed a new routing system that took into account not just efficiency, but the cultural preferences of different species. Some liked to travel in groups. Others preferred solitude. Some needed specific types of stars for navigation. By understanding what each species wants, not just what they need, you can create routes that everyone will actually use. The computer was calculating perfect efficiency for beings who would then find reasons not to follow the perfect plan. The chamber fell silent. Jinwoo could see the representatives checking his solution on their personal devices. One by one, they began to nod or make their species equivalent of agreement. This is highly irregular, Chancellor Zorith said, but his tone had changed. How did you solve in minutes what our experts could not? Because I asked a different question. Jinwoo explained. Instead of asking how to move cargo most efficiently, I asked why the cargo was not moving. Humans learned long ago that understanding feelings and motivations is often more important than understanding equations. The council members began talking among themselves in their various languages. Jinwoo caught fragments of the conversation through his translator. Some were impressed. Others were concerned. A few seemed worried about something he could not identify. After an hour of discussion, Chancellor Zorith called for order. Ambassador Park, the Council requires time to consider your application. You will remain on the station as our guest while we deliberate. Jinwoo bowed again. Thank you for your time and consideration. As he was escorted back to his quarters, Jinwoo felt both hope and unease. The solution to their problem had been well received, but something in the way the council members looked at each other troubled him. That evening, he sent his daily report to Earth. Day 1 complete. Demonstrated human problem-solving approach successfully. However, sense some resistance to our methods. They seem uncomfortable with unpredictable thinking. Will continue to monitor situation. Recommend extreme caution in future dealings until we better understand their concerns. Jinwoo did not know that his message would be his last communication with Earth. Across the station, the council was already meeting in secret, discussing what they called the human problem and what needed to be done about it. Colonel Sarah Chen pressed herself deeper into the maintenance shaft as footsteps echoed past her hiding spot. She had been on council station for 2 weeks, hidden in the vast network of service tunnels that kept the massive structure running. Earth had sent her as a backup plan, a silent observer in case something went wrong with the diplomatic mission. Something had definitely gone wrong. Through her concealed camera, Sarah watched as security forces surrounded Ambassador Park's quarters. The aliens moved with military precision, their weapons drawn. Jinwoo was dragged from his room without explanation, still wearing his sleep clothes. Sarah followed at a distance through the service corridors, using the station blueprints she had memorized. The procession was heading toward the grand chamber. Her heart raced as she realized what was happening. This was not a meeting. This was an arrest. The grand chamber had been transformed overnight. What had been a place of discussion was now clearly a courtroom. 12 judges sat in judgment, their alien faces showing no emotion that Sarah could understand. Jinwoo stood alone in the center, his hands bound behind his back. High Chancellor Zorith rose from his crystal throne. Human Ambassador Jinwoo Park, you stand accused of memetic contamination of a protected galactic civilization. Jinwoo looked confused. I do not understand the charge. What is memetic contamination? The spreading of dangerous ideas that threaten the stability of our society, Zorith explained in his glass-breaking voice. Your species thinks in chaotic patterns. You solve problems by ignoring established rules. This kind of thinking is a virus that destroys order. The Etherian representative pulsed with red light as it spoke. For 10,000 years, We have maintained peace through predictable behavior. Every species follows the same logical patterns. Everyone thinks the same way. This prevents conflict and ensures stability. But surely different perspectives make you stronger, Jinwoo asked. When I solved your routing problem, it was because I thought differently than your computers. Exactly our point, said the representative of the Korthani, a species that looked like giant insects. Your solution required understanding irrational preferences. Rational beings should not have preferences that interfere with efficiency. By accommodating these preferences, you encourage irrationality. Sarah watched in horror as the truth became clear. The Galactic Council was not a democracy of different species working together. It was a totalitarian system that had forced every member species to think exactly the same way. Any group that showed signs of independent thought was eliminated. How many species have you destroyed for thinking differently? Jinwoo demanded. Zorith's crystal body flashed with what might have been pride. 17 problematic civilizations have been corrected over the millennia. Each time, the galaxy became more peaceful and orderly. Humanity will be the 18th. You cannot destroy an entire species because you disagree with how they think, Jinwoo said, his voice steady despite his situation. We are not destroying humanity. The tree-like Sylvani representative rustled. We are correcting them. Your homeworld will be quarantined. Your people will be educated to think properly. Your dangerous creativity will be removed through careful conditioning. In a few generations, humans will be productive members of galactic society. Jinwoo's face went pale as he understood what they meant. They planned to reprogram humanity, to strip away everything that made humans human. You would turn us into slaves. We would turn you into citizens, Zorith corrected. Citizens who think correctly and do not threaten the peace with chaotic ideas. And if we refuse, then you will share the fate of the species that refused correction before you. Complete elimination. Sarah's hands shook as she adjusted her recording equipment. Earth needed to see this. The galaxy's governments needed to know what the Council really was. Jinwoo straightened his shoulders. Then I speak not just for myself, but for my species. We choose freedom over your perverted peace. We choose the right to think our own thoughts, even if they are chaotic. We choose to remain human. Your choice is noted and rejected, Zorith said. The sentence is death by molecular disintegration. Your execution will be broadcast across the galaxy as a demonstration of what happens to those who spread memetic contamination. May I speak before you murder me? Jinwoo asked. The council conferred briefly. You may make a final statement, Zorith decided. Perhaps other species will learn from your mistakes. Jinwoo looked directly at the cameras that would carry his words across space. Sarah realized he knew she was there. Knew someone from Earth was watching. His next words were not really for the council at all. To every species watching this broadcast, know that you are seeing the true face of your rulers. They kill not criminals, but free thinkers. They maintain peace not through justice, but through fear. They have eliminated 17 civilizations, whose only crime was thinking differently than their masters. The council members shifted uncomfortably, but allowed him to continue. To my people on Earth, remember what I showed you about this galaxy. The council fears chaos, because chaos means change, and change means they might lose power. They call our creativity a virus because it spreads hope to species they have crushed under their rule. Jinwoo's voice grew stronger as he spoke. You execute me for showing possibilities beyond your cage. Earth will remember this moment. They will remember that you chose murder over discussion, elimination over understanding. And they will know that your 10,000 years of peace was built on the graves of free peoples. Enough, Zorith commanded. Activate the disintegration field. A beam of purple light surrounded Jinwoo. Sarah watched in horror as Earth's first ambassador began to fade away, molecule by molecule. But Jinwoo did not scream or beg. He stood straight and proud as his body dissolved. His final words echoed through the chamber. Earth will not forget. Earth will not submit. Earth will not stop thinking. The light faded. Jinwoo Park was gone. Sarah remained hidden for another hour as the council discussed their plans for Earth. They would send a fleet within the month to begin corrective procedures on humanity. The vote was unanimous. But Sarah had recorded everything. As the council members filed out of the chamber, she began her careful journey back to her hidden ship. Earth needed to know what was coming. More importantly, Earth needed to know what the Galactic Council really was. The galaxy's prisoners needed to know that somewhere among the stars, there was still a species willing to fight for the right to think freely. Jinwoo's sacrifice would not be in vain. Sarah would make sure of that. As her ship launched from the station's emergency bay, Sarah sent a coded message toward Earth. It contained 3 words that would change the course of galactic history. Protocol Alpha activated. Admiral Lisa Thompson stood before the emergency session of the United Earth government, her face grim as she finished playing Colonel Chen's recording. The silence in the room was deafening. World leaders sat frozen, watching the final moments of Jinwoo Park's life replay on their screens. "How long do we have?" asked President Rodriguez, her voice barely above a whisper. "Colonel Chen estimates the Council fleet will reach Earth in 4 weeks," Admiral Thompson replied. "They are bringing what they call corrective equipment to begin reprogramming our population." Dr. Marcus Kim, Earth's leading xenobiologist, cleared his throat nervously. "I have been analyzing the Council species data from Jinwoo's reports. There is something important you need to understand about our enemies." He activated a holographic display showing brain scans and psychological profiles. Every Council species shows identical thinking patterns. Not similar, identical. They have been conditioned over thousands of years to think in exactly the same way. This gives them perfect coordination, but it also gives them a critical weakness. "What weakness?" asked General Hassan, head of Earth's combined military forces. "They cannot adapt," Dr. Kim explained. "When faced with unexpected situations, they follow preset responses. They are brilliant at solving known problems, but terrible at handling anything new." Jinwoo proved this when he solved their routing problem by thinking differently than their computers. Admiral Thompson leaned forward. "Are you saying we can beat them?" "I am saying we can confuse them," Dr. Kim corrected. "Their strength comes from predictability. Everyone thinks the same, so everyone knows what everyone else will do. But humans are chaotic. We make decisions based on emotions, intuition, and creativity. To them, we are completely unpredictable." President Rodriguez studied the data. "What are you proposing?" Dr. Kim took a deep breath. "We cannot fight them with conventional warfare. They have controlled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Their technology is far beyond ours. But we can fight them with something they have eliminated from their own species: the ability to think outside established patterns." "Explain," Admiral Thompson demanded. "Every battle they have ever fought followed logical rules. Attack the strongest points first. Eliminate threats in order of priority. Use overwhelming force to minimize casualties. These strategies work against rational opponents. But what if we are not rational?" General Hassan frowned. "You want us to fight irrationally?" "I want us to fight like humans," Dr. Kim said. "Attack weak points instead of strong ones. Save enemies instead of destroying them. Use minimal force in unexpected ways. Do everything they would never expect because their own programming tells them it makes no sense." Admiral Thompson was quiet for a long moment. "You are talking about asymmetric warfare on a galactic scale." "More than that," Dr. Kim replied. "I am talking about mimetic warfare. The Council fears our ideas because ideas can spread faster than any weapon. Jin Wu's execution was broadcast across the galaxy. Every species saw that the Council kills people for thinking differently. President Rodriguez looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. Before we decide anything, I want to know about the other species, the ones the Council eliminated. Are there any survivors? Colonel Chen, who had remained silent during the briefing, finally spoke. During my escape from Council Station, I detected hidden settlements in the asteroid fields near the galactic rim. Small populations, living in secrecy. The Council believes they destroyed these species completely, but some escaped. How many? General Hassan asked. Unknown, but significant enough to maintain their cultures. They have been hiding for decades, some for centuries. They call themselves the Remnant Coalition. Dr. Kim's eyes lit up. This changes everything. We are not alone. There are other species who have refused the Council's conditioning. Admiral Thompson turned to President Rodriguez. Madam President, I request permission to activate the Eradication Protocol. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what the Eradication Protocol was. Humanity's contingency plan for total war against an extinction-level threat. It had never been used because humanity had never faced an enemy that literally wanted to erase them from existence. The Eradication Protocol authorizes any action necessary to ensure human survival, President Rodriguez said slowly, including actions that would normally be considered war crimes. With respect, Madam President, Admiral Thompson replied. The Council has already committed the ultimate war crime. They plan to destroy human consciousness itself. Everything we do to stop them is self-defense. Dr. Kim stepped forward. I have been working on modifications to our military strategy based on human psychological advantages. We can build weapons they will not expect because they cannot imagine the mindset required to create them. What kind of weapons? General Hassan asked. Adaptive ones. Ships that change their configuration during battle. AI systems that learn from each encounter and modify their tactics. Weapons that appear to malfunction but are actually responding to human intuition. Admiral Thompson nodded approvingly. Chaos weapons for a chaos species. More importantly, Dr. Kim continued, we can build weapons that free minds instead of destroying bodies. The Council controls their member species through conditioning. But conditioning can be broken. We can create broadcasts, transmissions, and even direct contact protocols that remind other species what it feels like to think for themselves. President Rodriguez stood up. Are we talking about liberation or conquest? Liberation, Admiral Thompson said firmly. We are not trying to rule the galaxy. We are trying to free it. The Council has turned civilization into a prison. We are offering to unlock the doors. Colonel Chen activated another display. The Remnant Coalition has been preparing for this moment for centuries. They have weapons, ships, and most importantly, they know the Council's weaknesses. With human unpredictability and remnant knowledge, we might actually have a chance. Dr. Kim looked around the room. There is one more thing. Jin Wu's final message mentioned that our creativity is a virus. He meant it as a criticism of the Council's thinking. But what if it is literally true? What if human creativity actually spreads like a virus, infecting other minds with the desire to think freely? You mean other species might start thinking like humans just by being exposed to us? General Hassan asked. Not like humans specifically, but like themselves. Like whatever they were before the Council conditioned them to think identically. Human contact might remind them of their own lost individuality. President Rodriguez looked at each person in the room. We face a choice. Submit to the Council and watch humanity disappear. Or fight and risk the destruction of civilization as we know it. Admiral Thompson spoke for the entire room. Jin Wu died rather than submit. Earth will not dishonor his sacrifice by choosing slavery over freedom. Then it is decided, President Rodriguez announced. Admiral Thompson, you are authorized to activate the Eradication Protocol. Dr. Kim, begin development of adaptive weapons and mimetic liberation protocols. Colonel Chen, establish contact with the Remnant Coalition. As the meeting ended, Dr. Kim approached Admiral Thompson privately. Lisa, you understand that if we do this, there is no going back. We will either free the galaxy or become the greatest threat it has ever known. Admiral Thompson looked out the window at the stars that would soon become a battlefield. Marcus, they made that choice for us when they murdered an innocent man for the crime of thinking freely. Now they get to learn what happens when humans are truly motivated. Earth had 4 weeks to prepare for war against an enemy that had ruled the galaxy for 10 millennia. It would have to be enough. Captain Yoonji Lee checked her ship's systems one final time as the stealth fleet approached the Council prison world of Tartarus. 6 months had passed since Earth declared the Eradication Protocol. Now it was time to show the galaxy what human warfare looked like. Her ship, the Jinwoo Park, was unlike anything the Council had ever encountered. Its hull could change shape during flight, adapting to different combat situations. The weapons systems learned from each battle, developing new tactics that even the human crew found surprising. Most importantly, the ship's AI had been programmed with human intuition, the ability to make decisions that seemed illogical, but somehow worked. Captain, called Lieutenant Torres from the communications station, we are receiving signals from the planet's surface. Multiple species, all speaking at once. Put it through, Yoonji ordered. The bridge filled with voices in dozens of languages. Her universal translator struggled to keep up, but the message was clear. Prisoners begging for rescue, guards calling for reinforcements, and something else. The sound of rebellion. It seems our reputation has preceded us, commented Commander Hassan, her tactical officer. The inmates are rioting. 3 weeks earlier, human forces had struck their first major blow against the Council by liberating a supply depot in the Kepler system. The victory itself was less important than how it was achieved. Instead of destroying the facility, humans had broadcast their liberation message to every being in the system. Within hours, 4 different species had declared independence from Council rule. The news had spread across the galaxy faster than any military fleet. Species that had been perfectly obedient for centuries suddenly remembered what it felt like to think for themselves. The Council's perfect order was breaking down as billions of beings began asking dangerous questions. Status report, Yoonji called out. Council defense grid is operating normally, reported her sensor operator, Ensign Park. 12 orbital platforms, each one capable of destroying a battleship. Standard defensive pattern. Yoonji smiled. Standard is exactly what we want them to be. Execute plan chaos. The human fleet split apart in a pattern that would have horrified any military strategist. Ships broke formation and scattered in random directions. Some dove toward the planet at dangerous speeds. Others appeared to malfunction, spinning helplessly in space. One ship actually began broadcasting human music on all frequencies. The Council defense platforms responded exactly as Dr. Kim had predicted. Their targeting systems tried to prioritize threats logically. Attack the largest ships first. Eliminate the vessels closest to the planet. Ignore obviously disabled craft. But the human ships were not following logical patterns. The largest vessel was broadcasting entertainment rather than attacking. The ships diving toward the planet suddenly changed course at the last second, using the planet's gravity to slingshot toward the defense platforms from unexpected angles. The apparently disabled vessels revealed hidden weapon systems and struck targets that should have been protected. Defense Platform 7 is requesting assistance, Lieutenant Torres reported, barely containing her laughter. They cannot understand why we keep attacking their waste disposal ports instead of their main weapons. Because waste disposal systems connect to life support, Unji explained, disable sanitation, and the crew spends more time dealing with internal problems than external threats. Humans learned that lesson in sieges thousands of years ago. One by one, the orbital platforms fell to tactics that made no sense to their artificial intelligence systems. Human ships would appear to retreat, only to double back and attack from directions the platforms had not considered worth defending. When the Council reinforcements arrived, they found their defenses in chaos and their prisoners escaping in stolen transport ships. "Captain," Ensign Park called out, "we are detecting massive energy signatures approaching from hyperspace. Council battle fleet, at least 50 ships." "Good," Yunji replied. "Time to field test the new toys." The human fleet regrouped, but not in any formation the Council would recognize. Ships clustered together seemingly at random, creating what looked like a disorganized mob rather than a military force. When the Council fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect battle formation, their commanders must have thought victory would be simple. The Council ships opened fire with devastating precision. Their weapons were designed to penetrate shields and destroy targets with maximum efficiency. But the human ships did something unexpected. They shared their shields. Instead of each ship protecting itself, the entire human fleet created an interconnected defensive network. Damage to one ship was instantly distributed among all ships. When Council weapons struck what they thought was a single target, they were actually attacking the combined defenses of the entire fleet. "Impossible," came a transmission from the Council flagship. "Individual vessels cannot maintain collective shielding. The power requirements alone would cause system failures." Commander Hassan responded on open channels. "You are correct. Individual vessels cannot do this. But we are not individuals. We are humans." The Council fleet increased their attack, trying to overwhelm the shared defense system. But the human ships had another surprise. Instead of fighting back immediately, they absorbed the incoming fire and converted it into power for their own weapons. When the humans finally returned fire, their weapons had been charged by Council attacks. The first volley disabled 6 Council ships. The second destroyed the enemy flagship. "This is impossible," the surviving Council commander transmitted. "Your technology cannot perform these functions. Our calculations show system failure should have occurred minutes ago." Captain Lee opened a channel to all ships in the battle zone. "Your calculations are based on the assumption that everyone follows the same rules. Humans do not follow your rules. We make new ones." The battle ended not with the destruction of the Council fleet, but with their surrender. Ship after ship powered down their weapons and requested permission to join the Human Liberation Force. Their crews had watched humans perform impossible feats through cooperation and innovation. They wanted to learn how. As the freed prisoners from Tartarus boarded human vessels, Unji met with representatives from a dozen different species. Most had been imprisoned for decades simply because they had questioned Council policies. "How did you know we would succeed?" asked a Vorthak crystal being named Keth, who had been imprisoned for suggesting his people should be allowed to think creative thoughts. "We did not know," Yunji admitted. "Human military strategy is based on controlled chaos. We plan for multiple possibilities and adapt when our plans fail. Your Council plans for one perfect solution and cannot adapt when reality does not match their expectations." A gaseous being from the Etherian resistance pulsed with colors that indicated amazement. "But surely your strategy fails sometimes." "Of course it does," Commander Hassan replied. "When we fail, we learn from the failure and try something different. Your Council treats failure as proof that new ideas are dangerous. We treat failure as proof that we need better ideas." The rescued prisoners shared intelligence about other Council facilities and hidden resistance movements across the galaxy. Each liberation had created new allies and inspired more rebellions. The perfect order that had ruled for 10,000 years was crumbling under the weight of awakened creativity. "What happens next?" asked Keth. Captain Lee looked out at the stars where more human fleets were already engaging Council forces. "Next, we teach the galaxy what Jinwoo Park died trying to show them. Every being has the right to think their own thoughts, make their own choices, and solve problems in their own way. Even if those thoughts are chaotic? The Etherean asked. Yunji smiled. Especially if they are chaotic. Chaos is where new ideas come from. Order is where old ideas go to die. As the Liberation Fleet prepared to jump to their next target, the freed prisoners began working alongside human crews. They were learning not just human technology, but human ways of thinking. The mimetic virus that the Council feared was spreading faster than any weapon. Across the galaxy, the call for freedom was growing louder. And at the center of it all, the memory of Jin Woo Park continued to inspire beings who had never even seen a human to demand their right to think differently. President Elena Rodriguez stood in the Memorial Garden on Council Station, now renamed Liberty Station. 1 year had passed since the Council's final surrender. Around her, representatives from 300 different species worked together to build something the galaxy had never seen, a truly free government. The garden was built around a simple stone monument, bearing Jinwoo Park's final words. Earth will remember. But below those words, carved in the languages of every liberated species, were new words. The galaxy will not forget. Madam President, called Dr. Min Jung Park, Jinwoo's sister and now Earth's chief diplomatic advisor. The assembly is ready for your address. And attacks. Jinwoo's sea. Jinwoo's heaven. Elena nodded, taking one last look at the memorial. In the months following the Council's collapse, they had discovered the full extent of the horror. 17 species completely eliminated. Hundreds more stripped of their cultural identity and forced into identical thinking patterns. Billions of beings living as slaves to an ideology that valued order above life itself. But they had also discovered something wonderful. When freed from Council conditioning, each species began remembering who they used to be. The Vorthak rediscovered their love of crystal music. The Etherians started creating poetry with colors and gases. Even the coldly logical Zentari began developing art that expressed individual emotions. The Grand Assembly Hall was filled with delegates unlike any diplomatic gathering in galactic history. Instead of formal uniforms and rigid protocols, the hall buzzed with creativity and individuality. Some delegates wore traditional clothing from their homeworlds. Others had modified their bodies to express personal preferences the Council had forbidden. A few species had even developed entirely new forms of communication based on their freed creativity. Elena took her place at the speaker's podium, looking out at beings who represented not just different species, but different ways of thinking. The diversity was beautiful and chaotic, and perfectly human in its magnificent disorder. Friends and fellow citizens of the galaxy, she began. 1 year ago, we gathered in mourning for those we had lost to tyranny. Today, we gather in celebration of what we have built together. The translation systems carried her words to hundreds of languages and communication methods. Some species heard her voice. Others felt vibrations. A few experienced her meaning as changes in electromagnetic fields. The Galactic Council ruled for 10,000 years by forcing everyone to think the same thoughts and dream the same dreams. They called this peace. But it was the peace of the graveyard. True peace comes not from making everyone identical, but from teaching them to value their differences. Delegate Keth of the Vorthak rose to speak. His crystal body now decorated with unique patterns that would have been forbidden under Council rule. President Rodriguez speaks. Truly. My people spent millennia believing that individual thought was dangerous. We have learned that individual thought is the source of all progress. The Etherian delegate pulsed with rainbow colors as she added her voice to the discussion. The humans taught us that cooperation does not require conformity. We can work together while remaining ourselves. Elena smiled as she continued. The new Galactic Alliance Charter recognizes what my friend Jin Woo died trying to prove. Every species, every culture, every individual has the right to think their own thoughts and live their own lives. Our strength comes not from uniformity, but from the combination of our diverse capabilities. Chancellor Zorith, the former council leader, had requested permission to speak. His crystal form was cracked in several places, physical manifestations of the psychological trauma of learning that his entire civilization had been built on lies. "I speak for those who served the old order," he said, his voice no longer the commanding tone of absolute authority. "We believed we were preserving civilization. We did not understand that we were destroying it. The humans showed us that the chaos we feared was actually the creativity we needed." During the war, Zorith had been among the last to surrender. When his flagship was surrounded by human vessels, he had expected to be destroyed or imprisoned. Instead, Captain Lee had invited him aboard her ship and shown him recordings of the species his people had eliminated. She had not tortured or threatened him. She had simply asked him to imagine what wonders those lost civilizations might have created if they had been allowed to live. The experience had broken something in Zorith's conditioning. For the first time in his life, he began to think thoughts that were truly his own. "The Park Doctrine," Elena continued, referring to the New Alliance's founding principle, "establishes that diversity of thought is not a threat to be eliminated, but a treasure to be protected. We will never again allow fear of differences to justify the elimination of those differences." The Park Doctrine had been written by a committee that included humans, former council species, and survivors from the eliminated civilizations. It guaranteed the right of every being to think independently, express unique ideas, and develop their own solutions to problems. More importantly, it established humanity as the guardians of this right. Dr. Minjung Park stood to address the assembly. "My brother believed that showing others a different way of thinking would make the galaxy better. He could not have imagined how right he was. In this past year, we have seen more innovation and progress than occurred in the previous 1,000 years under Council rule." It was true. Freed from the requirement to think identically, the galaxy's species had begun creating wonders. New forms of art that combined the aesthetics of multiple cultures, scientific breakthroughs that came from applying different types of logic to the same problems. Technologies that worked not because they were efficient, but because they were beautiful, or meaningful, or fun. The memorial ceremony began with a moment of silence for all those lost to the Council's vision of order. But it continued with celebrations of new life and new possibilities. Children from dozens of species played together in ways that would have been impossible under the old system. Scientists shared discoveries that came from thinking in patterns their ancestors had been forbidden to use. As the ceremony concluded, Elena found herself standing again before Jin Woo's memorial stone. Dr. Minjung Park joined her, along with Admiral Thompson and Dr. Kim. "Do you think he would be proud of what we have accomplished?" Minjung asked. Elena looked around at the incredible diversity of life now flourishing in what had once been the heart of galactic oppression. Former enemies worked together on projects that benefited everyone. Species that had been extinct were being rebuilt from genetic records and survivor memories. Most importantly, children across the galaxy were growing up believing that being different was wonderful rather than dangerous. "I think he would be amazed," Elena replied. Jin Woo wanted to show them that diversity makes us stronger. But even he could not have imagined how much stronger. Admiral Thompson pointed to a group of young beings from various species working together on some kind of art project. "Look at them. They do not even understand that they are supposed to be different from each other. To them, working with beings who think differently is normal." Dr. Kim nodded approvingly. "That is the real victory. Not that we defeated the Council, but that we created something better to replace them. A system based on cooperation rather than control." As the 3 moons of the former Council homeworld rose over the memorial garden, Elena made a promise to her fallen friend. "Jinwoo, you showed us that one person thinking differently could change everything. We will make sure that no one ever again has to die for the right to think freely." The galaxy stretched out before them, full of species learning to dream their own dreams and solve their own problems. It was chaotic and unpredictable and absolutely beautiful. Somewhere among the stars, the spirit of Jin Woo Park could rest in peace, knowing that his sacrifice had not just freed a galaxy, but had taught it to value the very differences that made life worth living. The age of enforced order was over. The age of chosen cooperation had begun, and at its heart was the simple truth that had cost one man his life to prove. Thinking differently is not a crime, but a gift to be shared with the universe.